Like, what do you think an offer for Ohtani looks like? We're talking about what's his next contract going to look like. What would an offer look like? I would want like 10 to 11 prospects. Not only is he the best baseball player in Major League Baseball history, he's also your most marketable star.
The problem is you don't have him for as long under team control that the Padres do with Juan Soto. That's why the Nationals were able to get so much for Juan Soto, because they were trading a star not in his contract year, but way before it. So you have all this extra time, and it was like, let's just get it done now. So the Nats maximized his value. If you're any team, even the Dodgers, now it might be a little different for the Dodgers because they have this plethora of riches, right? And they got second best farm system in all of baseball, and then they've got all this talent that's already out there on the field, and they've got all the money in the world, and they can probably re-sign him. They may feel differently because they're going to say, all right, we'll trade for him, and we can probably re-sign him because we'll give him $600 million, and everything's going to be fine. Other teams, though, maybe even the Yankees, might feel differently. If you're not 100% confident that you can, well, one, you better know you can pay him. Because if you don't think you can pay him that much, why are you making the trade? That's stupid.
Yeah.
But two, if you don't think that he's going to re-sign with you, you don't make that trade. So it really narrows it down, like you said, to just a few teams. But when you talk about an actual return for him, it kind of just depends on what the mindset is of that team, because you have to think it's either going to be, if it's short term, it's not going to be as much, right? A rental player for the year.
Yeah.
If it's long term, like what could be with the Dodgers, well, then they're just like, look, we're trading for him to get him now, and we know that he's already going to be here. But at the same time, if you think you're going to sign him in the offseason, then just wait.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, just wait, and then you keep all of those prospects, and at the same time, you give him $600 million, and he's part of your organization without giving up anything. There's a business side to this, too. We understand that, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get people showing at that ballpark every day to watch him hit, and then also when he's pitching, it's an even bigger attraction. And it also makes it so other players want to come back to Washington. Years ago, and again, Washington just from my perspective, but for any team. Years ago, I remember the Nationals overpaying for Jason Worth. People were like, you gave him $125 million, you're crazy.
Remembers that.
But
yeah.
It gave them credibility. Sometimes if you're rebuilding a team, you also have to give that level of credibility to say, here you go. We've got this one star. Everybody else come in this way. But again, that's not going to happen, so I don't know why you'd be so cruel as to put me into that spot where I'm sitting there thinking about Shohei Ohtani in a Nats uniform, and it's never going to happen. Yeah, McCaffrey can do both, but you do worry, like, he's not going to necessarily just be a feature back for them. But you do kind of balance it out with the fact that he can go out and catch balls out of the backfield, going to be used as a receiver a lot. But first off, I only do PPR leagues. I can't do a standard league. It's awful.
Same.
I mean, it's just awful.
I don't want to slander anybody that does standard. But
no, I'll do it. It's awful. And I've had friends that do those leagues, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, it's just, and I've tried it, and I'm like, this is just awful. Like, you just, first off, it just makes it that much harder. Receivers are so much less valuable in that. But nowadays, everybody drafts receivers with their first. Like, for me, it's always receiver, my first two picks. Every single time in a PPR league.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
It's the best way to go. Now, if you're looking at running backs, all right, let's say Christian McCaffrey's off the board, Austin Eckler's off the board for you. How far down do you go before, like, do you wait till your third pick before you start taking a running back? Here's the thing. I've always thought that touchback and safety in the NFL should be reversed. Because think about it. A touchback is, like, a safety would make more sense if a guy catches the ball on a kickoff and kneels down in the end zone, right? It's safe. He's staying safe.
My brain is
not going back out on the field.
This is Friday, Nick.
Come on, you got this.
No.
Work with me. PJ, do you understand what I'm saying? Work with me. We got this, and then we'll move on to what we want to do.
Yeah.
But now that you've talked about names not making any sense, work with me here. I've always been convinced that when they created the rules for football, that they mixed up those two names, and they just stuck with it forever. Think about it. A safety is actually, right now in the NFL, right? Quarterback is pushed all the way back in the end zone, tackled in the end zone. That's a safety. A touchback is when a guy on a kickoff kneels down in the end zone. That's a touchback. But they actually make sense reversed. Hear me out. I will explain this as best I can for you with your Friday brain. PJ, work with me on this. If you can help me explain it to Ryan, I think we can do this.
I need some mushrooms.
It makes more sense to call a touchback a safety, right? A guy is going to return a kick. The ball is kicked to him, and it's in the end zone. He stays safely in the end zone and kneels down as opposed to running the kick out. While a quarterback, let's say he's on the 5-yard line, he's out of the end zone, but then he's stepping back in a drop back, and then he's tackled and touches back into the end zone. It makes more sense.
But I look at the Panthers, and I just feel like there's better ways to play them throughout the season because they're only going to be favored in 4 games as of right now. They have the 4th easiest schedule. They bring in Frank Reich. They draft Bryce Young. I definitely like their future, but I don't love like Adam Thielen as a number 1 wide receiver at this period of his career. And their offensive line isn't very good with a rookie quarterback. I don't love that. And the start of the season is going to be brutal. So what I would rather do with Carolina is if you could get an updated win total, I think you could really take advantage after week 6. And I'd rather bet on them later on in the season. You know, Bryce is going to figure some things out. Once we get to week 8, you know, rookie quarterbacks really aren't rookies anymore. And look at these first 6 games, man. They have the 9th most difficult schedule. They're 3-point dogs to Atlanta on the road week 1. They're home against the Saints. Right now that's a pick, but I think the Saints will be favored by 2. They're 4.5-point dogs in Seattle. They're 1.5-point dogs against the Vikings, and that game's in Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota's going to be good, but that's still a really tough place to play. 6-point road dogs against the Lions, and then touchdown underdogs against the Dolphins. That's just the first 6 weeks of the season. Then they go into the bye, and they come back. For a young team, though, that's a brutal start. So I'd rather just do something later on with them. And that's why I like Atlanta a little bit more. I know Desmond Ritter's young, but at least he's in his second year in that Arthur Smith offense.
Garrett Wilson's at 1150.5. Now, last year did have just over 1,100 yards receiving, literally 1,103. But now you're adding this guy. I don't know. Do you know who the quarterback is of the Jets now? I can't remember.
Zach Wilson.
It's Zach Wilson. That's right.
Wilson
there's somebody there. Aaron Rodgers is going to have it. His numbers are going to balloon with Aaron Rodgers there at quarterback.
So I bet him Offensive Player of the Year, 25-1. I also bet him at 12-1 to have the most receptions. And the reason being is because, Aaron Rodgers, when he has his number 1 wide receiver, then he falls in love with that guy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and everybody compares Garrett Wilson to a young Devontae Adams. He's a great route runner. And, I'm just looking at targets. You look at Devontae Adams, those, 3-4 years that he spent with Aaron Rodgers where he was the clear-cut number 1 and he was elite, he was averaging 12 targets per game. So that's why I like Garrett Wilson so much this season in that offense. Because Allen Lazard, he's not a number 1 wide receiver. We saw that last year in Green Bay. A great run-blocking wide receiver. He'll be important on third downs. Randall Cobb's beyond washed. So I
was thinking he was going to go for 1,000 yards
this
year.
He's just more of a locker room guy. Again, he'll make some big grabs on third down because Rodgers will know where he's going to be and he's going to trust him.
Right.
But this is going to be all about Garrett Wilson, dude. I think he's going to have a monster year. I think there's a shot he leads the league in receptions with.